On September 29, 2025, what started as a relentless downpour exploded into one of the worst floods the region has faced in decades. Within hours, streets were transformed into raging rivers, parking lots disappeared beneath 4 to 6 feet of water, and entire neighborhoods were devoured by powerful currents. There was no time to prepare. Families scrambled to upper floors, neighbors dragged one another through waist-deep torrents, and emergency hotlines were swamped with desperate calls. In towns and villages alike, cars bobbed away like discarded toys. Shopfronts crumbled under the weight of the flood, and massive blackouts plunged communities into paralyzing darkness. This was not just another seasonal storm. It was a brutal warning about the growing scale of disasters in a warming world. Tonight, we take you into the heart of Murcia's flood crisis, how it erupted, how ordinary people fought for their lives, and why experts fear this may only be the beginning. Within minutes, Murcia's cityscape was unrecognizable. Major roads vanished under 4 to 6 feet of water. Parking lots morphed into lakes. Entire blocks stood half-submerged, swallowed whole by the flood. Trapped drivers filmed chilling footage as water climbed to their windows. In one viral clip, a man clung to the roof of his SUV while raging currents swept away nearby cars like they were toys. Families fled as torrents burst through front doors, swallowing basements and ground floors in seconds. Witnesses compared it to a tsunami ripping through town. "Everything disappeared so fast," one survivor recalled. "We barely made it out alive." By nightfall, the toll was staggering. More than 1,000 vehicles stranded or destroyed bridges, crumpled side streets turned into rivers, and entire districts plunged into darkness as the power grid collapsed. Emergency teams maneuvered inflatable rafts through narrow alleys, hauling children, the elderly, and even pets to safety. Overhead, helicopters hovered lowering rescue baskets as families waved flashlights from rooftops, desperate to be seen. From affluent suburbs to humble farming villages, the flood made no distinction. Murcia was drowning together, united in fear, loss, and survival. By late afternoon, Spain's civil protection forces declared the highest state of emergency. Sirens echoed through the storm as more than 600 firefighters, police officers, and soldiers were deployed into the disaster zone. Convoys of trucks and rescue boats surged into drowned towns. 18 helicopters and 120 specialized vehicles spread out across the skies and streets, braving gale-force winds and near-zero visibility. Their mission was clear reach, the trapped before darkness closed in. But the obstacles were immense. Landslides buried highways, bridges collapsed, and dozens of towns were left powerless and cut off from communication. Rescue teams scrambled radios, crackling with static, struggling to coordinate through the chaos. In Lorca, inflatable rafts drifted down what were once bustling avenues, carrying families clutching children, pets, and plastic bags of salvaged belongings. In Murcia, firefighters trudged waist-deep into flooded nursing homes, hauling the elderly out on stretchers. Authorities issued desperate warnings. Do not attempt to cross flooded roads. One wrong step could be your last. Still, hundreds were stranded on rooftops, waving frantically as helicopters hovered overhead. Every second mattered. Each mission was a race against the flood. Murcia was not just flooded. It was fighting for survival, with first responders pushed to the very edge of human endurance. As cities drowned, Murcia's farmlands were dealt a blow that may linger for months, even years. Long called one of Europe's breadbaskets, the region watched thousands of acres of crops disappear beneath a suffocating tide. Fields once lined with crisp rows of lettuce, spinach, and kale were reduced to endless brown swamps. The soil is too waterlogged for tractors, a farmer near Cartagena explained. Step into the field, and you sink to your knees. With machinery useless, families clawed through the muck with bare hands, trying to salvage what little remained. But experts warn, the damage is irreversible. Floodwater will rot. The roots ignite fungal infestations and destroy entire harvests. Early estimates already place losses in the tens of millions of dollars. Livestock endured its own ordeal. In barns across the countryside, animals crowded onto higher ground as irrigation canals overflowed, spilling sewage, pesticides, and debris into the waters. Farmers now fear long-term contamination of both soil and water supplies. "These aren't statistics," one grower said, voice heavy with despair. "This is our entire year's work wiped out in a single night." For Murcia's agricultural heart, the storm brought more than economic ruin. It tore away livelihoods, traditions, and the very roots of rural life itself. As Murcia drowned, frustration boiled over. How could this not have been prevented? For years, residents and local leaders have pleaded for stronger defenses, modern canal systems, retention basins, and proper clearing of flood channels, known as ramblas. But progress was sluggish. Budgets, slashed projects, abandoned. Critical channels like the Nogal and Laosa remain unfinished despite repeated warnings after previous storms. To many, the catastrophe felt less like a surprise than an inevitability. Critics blasted authorities for dragging their feet, calling the disaster both predictable and preventable. Regional officials pointed to minor upgrades, a few reinforced roads, some new pumps, but conceded that major hydraulic works are years behind schedule. Opposition leaders accused the government of gambling with lives, of playing politics, while communities sat exposed. For residents, anger cuts deep. In Águilas, a shopkeeper shouted, "We begged for action. Now my store is gone." Farmers echoed the same outrage, saying they've endured broken promises as floods returned again and again. This storm didn't just reveal fragile infrastructure, it revealed political paralysis. In an age of stronger, wetter storms, Murcia is paying the price of inaction. This was not just nature's fury, it was human failure laid bare. Behind the staggering numbers are human stories, raw, emotional, and impossible to forget. In Lorca, a mother clutched her 2 children on a rooftop for 6 agonizing hours before firefighters finally reached them. The water just kept rising. "I thought it would take us all," she whispered. In Murcia, volunteers locked arms, forming human chains to guide seniors through chest-deep torrents. One rescuer confessed, "The current was so strong, standing was almost impossible." Videos spread online of families flashing lights from balconies desperate to be seen. In another, neighbors stretched ropes across a raging street to haul an elderly couple to safety. Shelters are now overflowing. Gym floors have become dormitories, mats laid out side by side. Children cling to donated toys, while families share simple meals, uncertain if or when they'll return home. But the wounds are deeper than lost property. Survivors say every clap of thunder brings back terror, as if the floods are coming again. One man standing outside the ruins of his house said quietly, "I lost my home, but I didn't lose my life. That's all that matters now." These voices, more than statistics, reveal the true scale of Murcia's tragedy, a community battered, but still holding on to hope. The flood in Murcia has outgrown a regional disaster. It is now a national emergency with global implications. Across southern Spain, transportation remains paralyzed. Highways lie closed, rail service suspended, and airports crippled by cascading delays. Hundreds of businesses have shuttered their supply chains, severed overnight. Early economic estimates already exceed $1 billion in damage, an overwhelming toll on homes, infrastructure, and agriculture. Insurance companies warn that the tidal wave of claims could strain the system for months, if not longer. Yet the true danger lies beyond the immediate losses. Experts warn that Murcia's catastrophe is not an anomaly, but part of a relentless pattern driven by climate change. Hotter Mediterranean summers are loading the skies with more moisture-priming storms to deliver heavier, more catastrophic rainfall. The reality is stark. What struck Murcia will strike again, and likely with greater fury. For Spain and for Europe, this is no longer a distant warning. Preparation is not optional. It is survival. Communities must adapt to a new normal, where storms are stronger, wetter, and increasingly unpredictable. Murcia's flood is not just a local tragedy. It is a global alarm bell, sounding a warning the world can no longer afford to ignore.
Aquí sí que baixate.
Tonight, Murcia is battered, but not broken. Streets remain drowned, farms lie in ruin, and thousands of families are displaced. Yet within the wreckage, resilience burns. Over 600 rescuers deployed, more than 1,000 vehicles destroyed, millions in crops lost. The numbers are staggering, but numbers alone cannot tell this story. The real story is a mother clinging to her children on a rooftop, farmers staring at fields they will never harvest, children curled up on gym floors waiting for a tomorrow that feels safe again. This catastrophe is more than a storm. It is a warning, a reminder that extreme weather is no longer distant or rare. It is here, it is now, and it is rewriting the way we live. If this story struck you, don't just watch, act. Like this video, share it, and subscribe. so that more people understand the urgency. Together, we must prepare, adapt, and stand ready, because the next storm is never far away.